Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 591 of the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. This is Linux in the Ham Shack, and you have joined us for our deep dive edition. So welcome in, but before we get to our deep dive topic for tonight, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. For the on assignment, Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
So I remembered my call sign this week, which is good. I must not
It's a
be
good
quite
start. Solid start.
Yeah. I must not be as busy this week as I was last week.
Yeah.
Well, and it is Monday, so that's probably true. Anyway, so our deep dive topic for tonight, did we do a deep dive on Tailscale? I think we did, right? Or did we just talk about VPNs in general?
Yeah, I think we probably talked about VPNs in general. I'm not sure if we did a full deep dive on Tailscale. But
Okay, well, on past programs, we have talked about Tailscale off and on, and the idea of a WireGuard VPN network, which is a way of connecting computers across public network interfaces securely using VPN tunnels, and specifically the WireGuard architecture. Tailscale is a preeminent player in this space, I guess you would say.
I take it back. We did do a deep dive, episode 531, Tailscale deep dive, back in February of 2024.
Okay, so it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, on that episode, Bill introduced me and the rest of us to Tailscale and the wonders of Tailscale, and I started using it and I thought it was wonderful. But then it started doing weird things on a couple of my computers where it was messing up DNS resolution, and my networks are a little weird because I have VPNs for work. I have different hosts in different locations which have different subnets, and So DNS resolution was becoming an issue, and managing DNS in Tailscale was not particularly friendly for me. So I went looking for an alternative to Tailscale, and I found one called Netbird. The website for this is netbird.io. It does a lot of the same things that Tailscale does, and the application, the cloud app front-end dashboard, actually looks a whole lot like Tailscale and actually works in a pretty similar way. But it also fixes some of the DNS problems that I had. It makes managing DNS easier for me, and so I have switched over to it entirely. So we'll talk a little bit about Netbird, and first I'm going to read some stuff from the Netbird website, which will tell you a little bit about what it is. It combines configuration-free peer-to-peer private networks and a centralized access control system into a single platform, making it easy to create secure private networks for your organization or home. Netbird creates a WireGuard-based overlay network that automatically connects your machines over an encrypted tunnel, leaving behind the hassle of opening ports, complex firewall rules, VPN gateways, and so forth. It enables secure remote access by applying granular access policies while allowing you to manage them intuitively from a single place. Works universally on any infrastructure. I don't know how true that is, but it does work on Linux and Windows and Mac OS, and it also works on some like IoT devices, some firewalls, and some things like that. So it can be run on a great many things, and it can even be used on devices that can't use it. There's a thing that we'll talk about in a little bit that allows you to access these networks on devices that can't run Netbird. But of course, you have to have at least one device that can. But again, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk a little bit about it. So this is an open source project. You can find it on GitHub. and you can download a self-hosted version of it if you like, or you can use the cloud-managed version, which I like, and certainly simplifies things for sure. It's licensed both BSD and AGPL. It's primarily BSD, but there are some components of it that are managed, or that are licensed AGPL. But that does make it open source, so you can use with a fair amount of confidence. So the idea behind this is if you have a bunch of computers in various places, they could be like droplets, VPSs, home computers, remote servers, whatever, and you want to have a way to connect between all of them and create a LAN segment, sort of, that is over an encrypted tunnel and doesn't really worry about geography. You can install Netbird on all of these hosts, and they will create a virtual private network linking them all, and they can even be like DNS resolved so that you can just, you can ping stuff over the encrypted tunnel, for example, or access SSH services or databases or whatever you need. It automatically by default implements a domain of netbird.cloud. So whatever hosts you bring online, you can have a hostname .netbird.cloud, and as long as it's in your instance, they will be resolvable, and you'll have connectivity between them. Because it is like a network overlay, there can be some issues. I noticed that there's some window sizing issues with NFS, and there may be some other services that maybe don't run super well or a little slow because of packet issues, packet overhead, MTUs, things like that. But for the most part, it's pretty seamless and it works really well. So the way I use it is with the cloud managed panel that you can find at app.netbird.io, or you can go to the GitHub, you can download and you can self-host the management panel if you want to do that. That gives you more finer grained control, but you actually do lose some features. If you go to the website about Netbird, they talk a little bit about what you don't get in the self-hosted version. And for most people, the cloud version is probably enough. The free version allows you to have 5 different management users and 100 different hosts. I think that's most appropriate and probably most useful for most average users. I mean, if you have more than 100 nodes to manage in a single VPN, you're probably business anyway.
Yeah.
And at least I would hope so. Although I bet if I really counted, I'm probably halfway there. But of course, I don't need to run Netbird on all of those devices. But yeah, the agent that runs Netbird can be downloaded onto any kind of systems, Linux systems, Mac OS, Windows, whatever. It runs on all of them. For example, on my Arch systems, Netbird is in the AUR, so it's really easy to install with PA Mac or Pacman. The Mac OS version is just a download. The Windows version is just a download. For things like Debian and Fedora and stuff like that, you can use a curl script that they provide to instantiate a link to the repositories, download and build the network or the Netbird binary. So real simple, single command, and away you go. Tailscale, I believe, does the same sort of thing. It can be installed the same sort of ways, where it's a quick download, like an exe file or an MSI file or a package file or a curl script. At least that's my recollection. I'm going to be leaning on Bill a little bit because I think he still uses Tailscale. So
yes, I do.
Have you done Tailscale on an Arch system?
Yes. My in fact, my office computer's Garuda Linux, and it's running Tailscale. And I use the curl script. No, I use the curl script for it.
Oh, okay.
It'll install from that as well.
All right, fair enough. I did mine. I'm running Manjaro, and of course I did mine using the PA Mac install, which worked absolutely fine. So,
and you got that random rat script right from the random user that just put it up yesterday.
Oh, great! Is it something I need to know about?
The remote access Trojan, right? We just talked about it the other day.
Yeah, I know, but was that? I thought they fixed that.
Oh, I was on Google Chrome, but they never found that one on Netbird.
Oh, well, I can't install Google Chrome because it's disabled in the AUR. If you try and install it, it just fails.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. So once you have it installed, however you did the install. Basically, it's a matter of bringing up the service, which on a Mac or a Windows machine will happen automatically. The service will automatically start. You might have to do a systemd command to bring up the server, or a netbird command actually initially to bring up the server, which is like sudo netbird server start, and then it will start forever after that. But once the server is running, you have to connect it to your network. And if you're doing cloud-based, then the network authentication is single sign-on. You can use a bunch of different things. You can use Microsoft, you can use Okta, you can use whatever. I use GitHub because I just happen to have a GitHub account, so it made it easy for single sign-on. I haven't explored the self-hosted version, so I assume that if you want to do authentication through that, you can set up your own authentications, or you can use some of the other SSO providers still, even though it's locally hosted. So once you've done that, you issue a netbird login command. And of course, on the GUI environments like macOS and Windows, it's just a, click to log in kind of thing. Once you authenticate with your SSO provider, it will link in, and then it will show up in the peer list. So pretty straightforward. I mean, this is dirt simple, easy for getting set up. If you don't want to authenticate up here that way, you can also create setup keys, and then when you bring the netbird instance online for whatever host you've got, you can just specify the setup key, and it will know that it's associated with your network, and it will link the peer in. You can create temporary keys, you can create permanent keys, however you want to do it. But the single sign-on option was easiest for me. I don't have any setup keys. Do it however you like. If you have a ton of instances, you might want to do setup keys. So once you've done that, then you can, Linux system, you would type netbird up. That connects everything, make sure it's linked into the network, and your peers will all be together. You get it's 100 dot something address, I believe, or 108. I don't remember exactly. I could look on my computer because I have it running here. So, okay, so this computer has 100.117. Blah, blah, blah. I don't remember if that's a full class B that they're using. I don't think it is. I think it's like a /12. I think it's a /12 that they use. And everybody's on that 100.117 something. But of course, you will be segmented from other people using the service. You'll never overlap with them. You have your own network, of course. And if you go into the management console at app.netbird.io, you can go to stroke peers, and you'll see all your peers. The one thing that I will say that you have to do with Netbird, or at least that I had to do with Netbird that you don't have to do with Tailscale, is by default, Netbird believes that hosts are transient, and you have to go in and click on the little ellipse on the right-hand side and disable session expiration. Otherwise, your Netbird instances will log out periodically. If that's what you want, fine. But I want my computers to be connected all the time.
Oh, yeah. That's a key expiry on Tailscale. So
okay.
Like your key will expire, and then you'll have to reconnect it, and then it'll has a refresh token that will last for a certain amount of time. But you can disable that with disable the key expiry.
Okay, yeah. So it works exactly the same way. So once you're looking at your peers inside the Netbird console, you'll see that when the last time it joined the WireGuard network is, what version the client is running, what OS type it is. I've got lots of little penguins and one lonely apple. So, it is what it is. And it'll tell you if your clients are offline or whatever, and it will also show you groups. Now, groups are the things that I use to manage DNS with. Oh no, let's see. Do I need to address anything else before I get into the whole DNS? I think I'm off script. So let me. So linking a host, bringing up VPN, netbird up. Yep, access control. Okay, so access control is kind of like how you would manage a firewall. You can do that even inside your VPN. So if you want certain hosts to only have access to other hosts or particular other hosts or services or stuff like that, you can actually set up firewall rules inside the VPN. I mean, to me, that's useless because I want all of my machines to connect to all of my other machines, but I can certainly see in a bigger environment or production environment why that might be useful. And they also have for the business clients, they have what's called posture validation, which means you can make sure that your hosts comply with host definitions. So if you're using things like Entra or Microsoft authentication and things like that, you can make sure that your hosts comply with your policies in a business environment, which obviously way beyond the scope of this. I mean, we're just talking about linking computers together. But you can see that it has some powerful features if you want them, for sure. For an ostensibly free product, it's pretty robust. So I did go through the Cloud Application Management panel, at least as far as the peer list. That shows you all those bits of information that I just specified. Networks is something that I don't use, but Bill does on Tailscale. What did you say the Tailscale called it?
The sub network routing? Is that what you're talking about?
Sub network routing. Okay. Close enough, I'm sure. So what this allows you to do is you set up an endpoint that is like an entry into your network, and it allows you to share resources that are inside the network with clients outside the network without having to install Netbird on that device. So it's kind of like agentless connection to the network. So if you need to distribute to a lot of devices that maybe either can't or you don't want to run Netbird on, you can still have access to all the resources on the private network by using the networking option. It's pretty simple to use. If you look at the networks tab on the panel, you just create a resource like PostgreSQL or something like that. You add a routing peer, which is the sort of entry point into the network, and then you add a policy like who has access to said resource. And then once you've defined that, then clients outside the VPN will have access to that resource. So pretty cool. I don't use it. I may use it someday, but so far haven't had to figure that out. What do you use it for?
So I use the subnet routing for routing my office network everywhere on my Tailscale, so I can see all the devices sitting in my office, which is basically my corporate computers that I can't install Tailscale on. So I have one computer that is basically the bridge to everything that's in my office, and it serves the subnet. So you actually get exposed the actual 192, 168, blah, blah, blah address. You can actually see all those from all over your network. So it's quite important that you know the subnet is not a normal subnet network that you would see in some other network, because I have Tailscale connected to everything, so including my phone and everything else. So
right, I have a weird issue with that too, where it's not for some reason, it's a perfectly good reason, but it turns out that the VPN, like my VPN at work, is the same subnet as the VPN at Marriott hotels. So I can't connect to work through the VPN at Marriott's. I can do it at other hotels because they don't use that same subnet, but I'm currently in the process of moving my work network off of that subnet, so it's no longer an issue. But you do have to be careful of that.
Yeah, so you have to be somewhat creative when you start doing subnet routing against your network, because you'll start seeing addresses that could possibly exist inside of the local network that you happen to be connecting to, whether it be a Wi-Fi network or whatever. So I would try to be obscure as possible when you're choosing to do something like that, and be cognizant of the fact that, like, if your home network is 192.168.0.whatever 0, and your other network you're trying to route is the same subnet, 0.0, that probably won't work for you very well, especially if you have devices that exist in both networks with the same address.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
if you do it with an address that is obscure or not so common, like I think mine's like 12 or 14 or something like that, it works fine, because like it exists everywhere, no matter what's Wi-Fi I've ever joined ever. It always works. And like I can even run the router application for my office network, which is a T-Mobile router, and I can bring up the router interface like I'm actually plugged into it here at the house. and reboot the router as if I'm there. So it's really cool. It does open up a lot of possibilities for managing the devices on the network.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically the upshot is if you're using a 192.168, don't use .0 or .1. Use something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I use 59. I've used 59 forever and ever and ever and the reason was because it was the digits of my address 25 years ago. And nice. I think it turns out to be good because I don't think anyone's ever really thought to use 59. So, well, now you know though. So if you use 59, I can't connect to you.
Yeah,
that's fine. Never going to be a problem. But anyway, so that's networks, and then of course the DNS thing, which is something that's been really handy for me. What I did is I set up groups. So I have hosts that are on different networks. I have some that are here on my 192.168.59 network. I have some that have public addresses because they're in a different location. I have some that are on a different private network, like some 10 dot addressing and some 172 addressing. And they each have internally, each of those networks has a different DNS server, right? Because the 192s need to look at something on 192. The 10s need to look at something on 10. I mean, if they're routed, you can use something that's off the network, but the chances of you using a 192 DNS server on a 10 network is pretty small, I would think. I mean, obviously you can use public address, but I have my router here locally that does local lookups on my domain, so I want it to be able to respond on the 192.168 network. But like my 172 networks or the public ones obviously don't need to look up on that server because they're never going to find anything or be able to reach those resources unless, of course, I set up Netbird that way, but I don't. So the DNS thing allows you to set up groups of servers that are in a specific place, or at least in my case, they're in a specific place. So all my 192.168s are in a group, all my 10s are in a group, all my publics are in a group, all my 172s are in a group. And then you define a name server that is associated with each of those groups. And then since Netbird sets your DNS when it's up to itself, it will look up basically on your local Netbird IP, will do the DNS forwarding. And then when it goes into the system, it will say, oh, this host is in this group, use this server for doing DNS lookups, and then it will work appropriately. So I find that super helpul. You apparently haven't come across an instance where you need that.
No, yeah, I haven't gotten into using DNS at all on mine. I was just kind of looking at the setups because I guess it's called Magic DNS or something like that for the devices inside of Tailscale, and I just I'm lazy. I just look at my machines and I connect via IP.
Yeah, see, I don't do that. I have like just on this network alone, this 192.168.59 network, I have like, I want to say there's like about 100 devices on it. Some of them are IoT devices and, stuff that's connected to the smart home and things like that. But as far as like actual servers and things that I connect to, like wireless bridges, routers, range extenders, switches, servers, blah, blah, blah. There's probably 50 of those. So, wow. Yeah. So I need DNS.
Yeah, I think I only have like 8 devices connected right now. So I have a lot more in the list, but they're not connected at all. So
right. So what's been handy for me is I put in my router that connects to the ISP, I put all the DNS entries in there. Then I create the group for my local network here, install Netbird on the things that need it, and then point Netbird's DNS to the group, which forwards the lookup to my router. And that works fantastic. So that way I no longer have to keep host files on any of my devices. All of the lookups work perfectly. And anytime I bring something online, because I use, iVentoy and stuff like that, so I'll just bring, hosts online. As soon as I do that and install Netbird, as long as I define that peer to be in my local group, which is easy enough to do, of course, then all of my DNS records automatically work and I can get to anything on the network. So I find it handy.
Oh, very cool.
So now to a couple of features I don't use. So at this point, I think we've sort of outlined how this works. Basically, it creates a network overlay. It gives you a virtual connection between devices on whatever networks they happen to be on. As long as they're connected into the Netbird instance, then you have access to them. You can either do it via the IP that's registered, or you can set up DNS like I have. And of course, it does automatic DNS for the network overlay as long as you're using the netbird.cloud address scheme. So whatever the host name is, whatever the peer ID is, .netbird.cloud, you'll be able to ping that, SSH to it, access, applications on it, whatever. That will work out of the box. And what's nice about that actually is, like, let's say, because some of the stuff I run Netbird on is public, right? So I can run a ping on the public host name, like nasbox.whatever, and then you can ping it on nasbox.netbird.cloud, and you'll get to the same box 2 different ways, one public, one private. So depending on how you want to access things, makes that easy. So a couple of the features that I don't use have to do with management and authentication for additional users. I set up the network myself. I manage it myself. I don't have any additional team members, but you can set up additional team members if you want. Like I said, in the free version, you get up to 5. Those users they use a single sign-on authentication just like the others. You can give them all or limited access into the network for adding peers, changing configurations, blah, 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 whatever you want them to be able to do. And they can also add their own peers into the instance if they want to. And the API, there's an API for Netbird, which allows you to connect into it using API calls, which allow you to do all the same things. And that can be limited or wide open access with the authentication tokens as well. You can use single sign-on. Like I said, by default, it uses single sign-on. You can set up MFA if you're doing this like in a business, or if you want to have better security, if you want to be sure that the people who are accessing your network are the people you want to be accessing your network, you can set up MFA. I think it uses all the big ones like Google and Okta, and I think you can use Google Authenticator and whatever. So if you need to have a team managing your networks, bringing hosts on and offline, setting access controls, et cetera, you can do that. And of course, if you need more access than 5 team members and 100 nodes, you can start paying for it. It's not super expensive. So the free version, up to 5 users, 100 different machines. Team use, let's see, teams and organizations looking to replace legacy VPNs, $5 per user per month, up to an unlimited number of users, depending on how many you want to spend, $5 on. And that gives you access to 100 machines plus 10 per user. So for $50 a month, you'd have 10 users and 150 machines. And then if you want the business features, it's $12 per user per month. The limits are the same. Unlimited users are $12 a month. You get 10 additional machines per user plus the original 100. And then you get the access to the auditing, traffic monitoring, priority support, posture checks, event logging, blah, 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 and all the other things that business access gives you, which would probably be handy, but I wouldn't look at them anyway.
You talked a little bit about Teams, right? So that's how you can share your Tailscale or bridge your Tailscale with somebody else's Tailscale. Or Netbird. I keep saying Tailscale.
Well, whatever.
Same. That's the same. And I just, I'm literally playing around with my Tailscale as you were talking. Because I'm like, oh, I haven't tried this Magic DNS. Let me try it. Now I can ping actually, host names and stuff like that inside of my network. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Why didn't I turn that on ages ago? Do they have like add-on services? I know Tailscale offers external exit nodes for VPN connection, like Mulvad, which is kind of like your ExpressVPN connection or something like that, except for they have their own selected product that they connect to. Does Netbird offer something like that that's very similar?
I don't know if they offer it as like an add-on feature of Netbird itself, but of course you can always set up an exit node and then have another VPN on that exit node routing to, some other like NordVPN or something. You could have it doing that. I don't know if it's integrated at all. I haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, because I have used the Mulvad one, and that's quite nice because you can actually use it as an exit node and actually give devices. Like I know I can do like up to 5 devices or something like that with my particular setup, but that's sort of something I like to have, so I can, if I want certain devices to have access to that, I can. And then like especially like my phone, I can connect it to the Mulvad, and then I can actually hotspot that, and then allow other devices to connect via that same connection point. So everything goes through that VPN connection. So it actually, the exit point to the internet or entry point to the internet is somewhere else in another country, which is kind of cool.
Right. And I know you can do that because if you specify an exit node on your VPN, whether it's Netbird or Tailscale, all of your outbound traffic can be routed through that single host. And then if that host's traffic is then routed through another VPN like Mulvad or Nord or whatever some of the other ones are, then you can have your ultimate exit node be anywhere that the other network is accessible to. So you could have it come out in Belgium or whatever.
So have you connected
whether
your phone
they link
to
the two together,
Netbird yet?
I have not connected my phone to Netbird yet.
Oh, I just wanted to know how well the integration is, because you use iPhone, right?
I do use an iPhone, and I probably would have if I had any reason to connect to the network, from my phone, but I don't really think I do. The biggest thing I use this for is for NFS access. I think I've mentioned this on the show before, where I had this huge problem where I was trying to mount NFS shares over a public internet from, but have it secure, which NFS is inherently an insecure protocol. So the way that everybody said to do it was to use Kerberos. Well, Kerberos is just an under. So in order to have secure access to my NF shares over, private environment, this is the way to do it, basically, because I can connect to my servers, whatever servers they are, over an encrypted channel, whether it's public, private, or otherwise. And I know that the netbird.cloud addressing is going to remain the same. So I can always mount my shares and not have to worry about it. And I don't have to deal with things like Kerberos. So that's sort of my primary use case for this. And so I haven't gone way down the rabbit hole yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm just looking. Darren just popped into the chat here, and he says that might be useful soon. Our government is going to make everyone provide certified ID to access all social media, and I want to have all of my devices exit from New Zealand. And I was just looking at my Mulvad VPN, and New Zealand is one of the exit points. And
there you go. Nice. So Mulvad is not free, right?
No, it's $5 a month, but it's the only thing I spend on with Tailscale, and I think it's for $5. It's worth it because I really appreciate everything they've done with it, and I'm sure Tailscale gets a portion of that, which is I'm perfectly fine with. I would pay even more to Tailscale for what I have. I mean, I really enjoy the service, and I use it immensely, every day. So it's my whole workflow depends on Tailscale actually working. So yeah, something like Netbird or something like that, doesn't matter what it is. I really appreciate these kind of services. So I would be more than willing to go beyond the free tier to pay for it because I use it for my work every day.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm kind of curious about using something like Mulvad or Nord to reroute an exit node through another VPN. I don't know if in the Tailscale world it just sort of it's integrated together. Do you see it in Tailscale when you're managing it, or is it two separate things?
I see it. So on my I'm just looking at my phone because my phone's one of the devices, and then when I go to exit nodes for my phone, so if I'm selecting an exit node, I can see all of my VPN connections, which shows 49 countries I can exit from, or my 2 static devices that I have set up as exit nodes. So that's how it presents itself.
Oh, that's really interesting. Well, I'm going to investigate this further because I'd like to have that capability. Because there's a few things I would like to do or be able to do with stuff on this network where the exit node is not my ISP's IP address. So, yeah, I might check that out and see if there's any sort of integration with Netbird or if nothing else, to see how it works together. I do see that if you look at the servers from Mulvad, WireGuard is an option for listed servers. So I'll be interested to see how that looks. I bet if I do a Google search for Mullvad and Netbird, it will give me all kinds of great information. So
yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah, it's definitely my use case, of course, is always to have something extra to do that, and then if I can have it where I can use other devices using it, it works even better. Because I don't always need it from like my house and stuff like that, but like it knows like my two main devices that I use are my phone and my MacBook. So like those devices I have constantly locked into that, so it can connect into things, and then I have some static devices on various networks that allow me to use them as exit points if I want to do that. And the exit points are really cool too, because like you can set those up, and then you can actually have everything in your whole network use that as an exit point. So it doesn't have to be on that network or whatever. And it's like, no, I want all my internet to go through this one point. So if you wanted it to go through a centralized Pi hole or something like that, you could actually have it do all that. So it's quite useful for stuff like that. So if you want like only internet access through this one endpoint, that would work. Wow. My work stuff is pinging me like crazy. It doesn't look like anything's down. It's like everything looks like it's up. I don't know why it's whining at me. I didn't do anything.
Well, look, Darren jumped onto Netbird while we were talking.
Yep, new customer, or no, free customer, right? New free tier.
Well, very good. So we're already making waves for Netbird. Excellent. So I do have some resources that will be in the show notes, including where to get Netbird, where to manage it, where the GitHub location is if you want to self-host it, the documentation site, and all that. Netbird is extremely well documented, so you should not have any issue getting it up and running in a matter of mere minutes and enjoying all the features that it has. So with that, unless anybody's got any questions or you have anything else about Tailscale and or Netbird, then I guess we'll just move on.
No, yeah, it looks kind of like comprehensive and like an equal replacement. And I'm not sure if it's very different. I know you picked it for very specific reasons for your DNS stuff. So did you try the Magic DNS stuff and it just didn't work out for you, or?
Yes, I had one host in particular that did not handle the DNS, and I tried everything, including, removing it from the network, setting up manual DNS entries, working with Magic DNS, setting up DNS resolution inside of Tailscale, and it just, that one host, I don't know, it could have just been the host, but it had all manner of problems trying to resolve host names. And when I flipped over to Netbird, it just worked. So,
well, I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, that's like the ultimate, right? When stuff just works.
Right.
It's not like I'm selling Tailscale here, but I haven't run into the use case that I needed to switch yet, but I'm definitely interested. I'm also interested in like just the self-hosted version, only because I think like some networks are tending to block access to stuff that it knows about, which would be endpoints for public interfaces for those kind of things like Tailscale, probably Netbird and stuff like that. Like I'm sure there's entry points that are specifically blocked because people don't want Tailscale devices to access and cross certain networks. And since those are published, it's easy to block them. But like if you run your own like Headscale or Netbird, self-hosted, like it wouldn't know the endpoint that you're connecting to. And you could also probably manipulate which port is like the accessible ports. And I'm assuming you can control that as well, right?
Again, the self-hosted side I didn't get into, but these are definitely things worth taking a look at. And this might be one of those things like when I figure out how to connect the VPNs and have like geolocated exit points and stuff like that. And self-hosted instance might be a good fodder for a YouTube video. So maybe I can work on that. I need to do some YouTube content since you've been doing it all so far.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, like specifically for that one case where like these things are sort of blocked by normal use. But like, we know like over the years, like there's always been stuff that's been blocked and stuff like that. But if you expose it via port 80 or port 443 or whatever, all of a sudden the world is open to you. But then, if you happen to have anything in the world hit it with a browser, it just explodes on impact because it's not actually the service that's sitting on that port. But you can sort of evade a lot of firewalls that have preemptively blocked services like Tailscale, Netbird, even like TeamViewer and all that other stuff, Rust Desk and all those other kind of known port products, and that you can evade with possibly self-hosting and manipulating which port it answers on.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly worth investigation further. And the other thing I will say about Netbird is I know it's not super different because I can kind of see in my mind's eye what the Tailscale console looked like, the cloud console. To me, the Netbird one is just a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to navigate than the Tailscale one was. And I think some of the features are named a little better and a little easier to navigate. That's probably a small comment in the grand scheme of things. I just found Netbird a little prettier, if you will.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I like their web interface too. It looks pretty clean, and I don't know if I'd switch, but I'll definitely consider it and consider looking at it. But it looks cool.
All right, very good. Well, that brings us down to the end of the deep dive topic for the evening, but we're not quite done with the show yet. We do have a bit of feedback and some announcements. So on feedback, this came in a day or two ago, I think. It was on Mastodon from Waterford Ham. He said, "Hey, folks, episode 588 feedback. You made a suggestion for someone to make a sandwich waiting to see if a USB had finished writing. A slight improvement may be for them to issue a sync command and then go make the sandwich." Well, yeah, absolutely. I think issuing sync for devices that do slow writes has become kind of a lost art. It is excellent, though, because if you issue a sync, then once all the data has been written to said device, the sync will exit and you will know that the write is complete. Of course, this only works on devices that support sync. I think like if you're burning like an ISO with Rufus or something like that, you can't really issue a sync. You just have to kind of hope that it's done. Thus the go make a sandwich.
So yeah, this is when I was talking about when you're writing a disk or the USB stick and it's actually still writing, but you can click the eject button, but then it's waiting because it's still writing. That's what I was talking about with this. So, and in fact, I think it is executing the sync command when it doesn't eject. So I think that's already in play. It's just that if you have no indication that it's actually still writing and the OS is like, it's not here anymore, which is generally the case that, visually is present inside of the whatever file manager you're using, Dolphin or whatever, Nautilus. name your file manager for your UI. When it ejects it might not actually be ejected. That's kind of what I was talking about. But essentially it is doing that sync command at the same time. That's why we're seeing the writes occur on the drive when you click the eject button.
Yeah, well, it's always safe to use the eject first or the remove device safely or whatever. Because if
you remember when you had to do that, do you remember when you had to do that on systems? You actually had to stop the system and then sync before you rebooted.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like I remember like on the Sun boxes, you had to do stop A and then run sync, and then you always ran sync a couple times because you didn't really know if it actually worked. Right. So you're like sync. Okay, shut up. Yeah, those were scary times. We don't have to do that so much anymore. But like if you've been around doing that for a while, then you may have run into it where you actually had to do this by hand, and this was not something that was already kind of built into step processes or workflows in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Things have improved greatly over the years. So that's our bit of feedback for this time around. We do have the announcements of help support the show, if you would, over on Patreon, PayPal, buying some merchandise, and signing up over on YouTube and checking out the YouTube content. We appreciate that. So with that, we'll take a look at any new subscribers, supporters, and live participants. And we didn't have a whole lot because it's only been a couple of days since the last episode was released. But, there's a few. Over on Discord, we had Morse, Mike_Kelly, and Reggie show up. So thanks for joining over there. We've had some interesting discussion with Reggie over the past few days. He was doing a lot of stuff with wind keyers and CW and linking radios and all that kind of stuff. So been really interesting there on the Discord. So sign up if you want to be a part of all of that. Over on Mastodon, we had DL9ET join us. And in the live chat, we had Steve, KJ5T, Darren, VK6EK, and Neiman Dem, which I don't remember. I assume we haven't figured out a call sign for that yet. But thanks for joining us for the live show. We appreciate it. And that brings us down to the end of the show for tonight. We really appreciate you all being here. We hope you have a great week, and we hope you'll tune in next time around when we have a short topics episode. And that will be on a week's time. And then I'm not sure about the week after that because I am going to be in New England, and I don't know if I'm going to want to record, even though it is a weekender. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But anyway, just be aware 2 weeks.
Record it from your phone, right?
Well, I have a computer, so.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You go to the bar. You do the nice. There's a cigar bar there, right?
Yeah, there's a really nice cigar lounge. I don't know if I want a podcast from there, but I guess we'll see how it happens.
Unless you have 100 people at your table, I think you're probably fine, right? They won't complain.
Probably not. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. There may be a weekender in it after all. But anyway, have a great week. We'll talk to you all soon. This has been episode number 591 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And for the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.